Well, a happy Sunday, October the 2nd, I believe. And thought I would read a little something to you from Terry Melanson's Perfectibilists. From Chapter 3, Revolution and Reaction. I have foreseen everything, and I have prepared everything. Let my whole order go to rack and ruin. In 3 years I will answer to restore it, and that to a more powerful state than it is in at present. Ellipsis. I shall rise stronger than ever. Ellipsis. I can sacrifice whole provinces. The desertion of a few individuals, therefore, will not alarm me. From Adam Weishaupt. Royal Conspirators. According to Barwell, Emperor Joseph II was in possession of a circular emanating from the Grand Orient in France, and sent out to all the lodges. The Duc d'Orléans' signature was on the copy in Joseph's possession, which read, Ellipsis. All the lodges are summoned to confederate together, to unite their efforts to maintain the revolution, to gain over it in all parts friends, partisans, and protectors, to propagate the flame, to vivify the spirit, to excite zeal and ardor for it in every state and by every means in their power. Perhaps the most solid connection to the Duc d'Orléans, who was later dubbed Philippe Égalité at his own request, was the new Bode recruit Rotier de Monteleu, a veritable Mason's Mason. On the King's Court Council, Rotier was an auditor in the Paris Chamber of Finance, in 1775 its director, in 1787, and later director of finance for France, 1791 through 97. At the beginning of 1794, he was arrested by the revolutionary government and released with the fall of Maximilien Robespierre, who lived from 1758 through 1794. Later that year, the right-hand man of the Duc d'Orléans, Rotier, had been his active agent at the beginning of the French Revolution. Rotier de Monteleu ensured the survival of Masonry in France through the years of Robespierre's dictatorship and the resulting reign of terror. First initiated into Freemasonry in 1772 in Marseille, he became a member of the Loge des Amitiés, 1775 through 89, and the Lodge's master in 1786. He was a deputy master of the Lodge Saint-Germain de Compiègne from 1776 through 85 and 1804 and 1805, and a member of the Les Amis Réunis of Savalette des Landes in 1782 through 92. Rotier became a brother of the Lodge of La Heureuse Sympathie in Paris in 1778, the Lodge Les Constances, 1788, the Lodge Guillaume Tell in 1789, the Lodge Le Centre d'Armée, 1793 through 99, and its master in 1803. After 1780, he was a member of the Grand Orient de France, becoming its Grand Master in 1785, replacing the Duc d'Orléans. And finally, Rotier became the Grand Master of all the lodges in France in 1795, after resuscitating and reorganizing the entire enterprise. That's quite the resume, and now we can safely add a member of the Illuminati. Exactly what influence the latter connection really had on the man, we will never know. One question naturally comes to mind. Since he was the protector and savior of French Freemasonry during and after the Revolution, and had full control over the direction he wished to steer the enterprise, how much of Bode's Bavarian Illuminism had made its way into the inner core of the newly reinstituted Grand Orient of France? Was there an adherence to the, quote, secret society within a secret society principle so integral to the very purpose of the Illuminati? It would seem like the perfect time to institute such a system, and it could be flawlessly integrated into the core. With a passing mention again of Jean-Baptiste Lesage, about whom we know little other than he was the secretary of Amis Réunis, we come to François-Antoine Lemoyne d'Aubermesnil, or d'Aubermesnil. Oh, I see how that would, okay. The last of the prominent Bode recruits. Bode being one of the original German Bavarian Illuminati. D'Aubermesnil was quite an interesting character, and his Masonic connections were also extensive. In 1786 and through 87, he was the deputy master of Narbonne Lodge, l'Amitié à la Épreuve, a member of Savalette des Langes, Amis Réunis, 1787 through 89, a member of the Paris Lodge, Le Centre d'Amis, 93 through 99, and later served with Rotier de Montelot as Deputy Grand Master of the Grand Orient in France, a deputy of the National Convention and member of Le Concile des 500, the Council of the 500. D'Aubermesnil was present. What a name. I swear, it's like something out of Amelie. Berthaudot, Laplanche, and emotionally touched when Rousseau's ashes were interred at the Pantheon. Okay, that's pretty good, man. He was quite the man here. All right. Of course, only Rousseau's ashes interred at the Pantheon. Weishaupt had written on a couple of occasions that he wished to change the name of his order to the Republic of Bees, or the Society of the Bees, and Napoleon used the symbol of the bee as an integral motif for his imperial robe. It now becomes clear that it is likely that the idea was suggested to Napoleon directly or indirectly by d'Aubermesnil himself. Christopher Prendergast writes, quote, "The beehive was a standard metaphor for the well-ordered state." In 1796, d'Aubermesnil, speaking at the National Convention, recommended that it be adopted, unquote, by the Republic. French historian Frédéric Masson reiterates d'Aubermesnil. He says, speaking in the name of the Comité of Public Instruction, had proposed that the emblem of the state should be a hive swarming with bees, and that it should be placed upon the front of every national building, unquote. D'Aubermesnil was an important promoter of, okay, this is always one that gets me because I always confuse this with other Theophilanthropy. Theophilanthropy, a state-sponsored, secular, deist sect/religion intended to replace Christianity. People who are on the left end, okay, this is what all the looniest people on the right are talking about. This stuff really happened. I might get to the point where I'm reading about the multiple versions of stuff like this. The churches made to reason. Like the Church of Reason and stuff like that in post-revolutionary France. It got pretty crazy. And they're trying to make this a state religion, a state deist religion. You know, a whole bunch of people from the top down, all the smart people. The new theophilanthropic movement, writes Nicholas Boyle, might have been dreamed up in the lodges of the Bavarian Illuminati. They were allowed to make use of de-Christianized churches for their services, and were a link between Robespierre's cult of the Supreme Being and the later socialism of Saint Simon. Saint Simon. It is known that Saint Simon had been an adherent of theophilanthropy as well, however, briefly. Now let's see. Claude Henri de Rouvroy, Comte de Saint-Simon, 1760 through 1826. Wow, all right, good going. Volunteered and fought in the American Revolution. Saint-Simon's utopian socialist, technocratic, industrial writings influenced a wide range of ideologues. His name is inscribed on an obelisk in Moscow, a repurposed Bolshevik monument, as one of the greatest socialist thinkers and revolutionaries. Hope all of you who are leftists who watch this, you're understanding where your ideas came from. Nicholas Hans wrote that the origins of theophilanthropy can be traced back to the deistic society of David Williams, 1738 through 1816, and Benjamin Franklin, 1706 through 1790, in London in the 70s. The 70s. Cocaine's a strange drug. He goes on to list as adherents members of the famous Paris Lodge, Neuf Soyeuse, Franklin Thomas Paine, suspected Illuminatist Johann Georg Adam Forster, 1754 through 1794, Brissot, and La Rochefoucauld. The latter two, as noted earlier, were also associated with the Society of 30. And further, this tradition was accepted by most of the members of the Neuf Soyeuse, and when in 1796 a Mason, Jean-Baptiste Chemin Dupont, published in his Manuel de Theanthropophilae, many members of the lodge and other Masons joined his movement. Among the leading members of the new religion, renamed Theophilanthropy, we find D'Aubersmesnil, Weishaupt, Dupont de Nemours, Cruz la Touche, Goupil de Préferne, B. de Saint-Pierre, David, Danou, Deslille de Sales, that might be Sales, Douin, de Fontaine, F. de, I'm not sure, F. de Neufchâteau, Lefebvre de Villebrun, Thomas Paine, Le Réveillé Lepaul, or La Réveillé Lepaul, F. Nogaret, and others who are all closely connected with Neuf Soyeuse. Now, of course, if you're into French Freemasonry and spies of the Revolutionary period, probably a lot of this means a lot to you. D'Aubersmesnil's own version of the new deist creed was a direct outgrowth of theophilanthropy, called the culte du adorateur, cult of adorers. The adorateurs were a sect after the heart of Weishaupt himself, it seems. Incredibly reminiscent of the primitivist doctrine of the Bavarian Illuminati, D'Aubersmesnil sought a return to the authentic religion practiced by the first men in the Golden Age. True religion, D'Aubersmesnil believed, was only known by the first men, the patriarchs, who governed their families through natural law and conscience alone. A primordial bliss when mankind was truly happy from a priesthood, mystery, or dogma. The cults only, not smooth enough, Don. concern was direct communication with the eternal, gnosis, resulting in a sovereign dispensation of all that was good in the world. More recently, the clergy, as self-appointed intermediaries between God and man, had only managed to complicate and corrupt the process. With great artifice and cunning, they governed the people through ignorance and fear. The only hope for mankind, then, that is, one free from superstitious folly, is to rediscover the sages and philosophers of antiquity. They alone have preserved the original, authentic teachings more faithfully. Apparently, there were two temples of the culte adorateur founded in France, one in Gaillac, in the Tarn region. What a great name, Tarn. D'Aubemesnil's jurisdiction, and the other at the Rue des Bacs in Paris. The proposed ceremonies of D'Aubemesnil's new cult were calculated to coincide with those of antiquity. Funeral rites, for instance, were to take place in front of a cave or grotto. A public official, rather than a priest, should conduct the service. Honey would be poured around the coffin, those bees again, in homage to the dead man's sweetness of character, then milk in memory of his candor, wine to commemorate his strength, and lastly incense, so that his good actions may fill the tableau of his life like smoke. D'Aubemesnil's efforts to find a suitable place to conduct the rites of the adorateurs had him dreaming of an asylum, that is, a sacred place crowned with an observatory stuffed with instruments and books, where scholars would come and study the course of the stars, with the signs of the zodiac on the walls and inside frescoes depicting the seasons. The temple is, significantly, both the place of astronomy and the place of the civic cult, a living illustration of the link established by the famous and then quite recent book by Dupuy on the origins of cults. Indeed, it is here that the sacrality of a revolution, which is both a scientific and an astral figure, is most surely expressed. It's obvious that theophilanthropy and the culte adorateur were compatible, perhaps even identical. Just as Chemin Dupont had published in his Manuel de Theoanthropophile in 1796. That's what I always get mixed up with the other one. That they're different. I'm probably not pronouncing it. I'm murdering this French. The same year saw the printing of D'Aubemesnil's Extrait d'un manuscrit intitulé Le culte des adorateurs, contenant des fragments de leurs différents livres sur l'institut du culte, les observations religieuses, l'instruction, les préceptes et l'adoration. Excerpts from a manuscript titled Cult of Odors, containing fragments of different books on the establishment of cults, religious observations, instruction, precepts, and worship. Rather than being an offshoot of the main faith, the 1796 Culte d'Auteurs was identified by John Gorton as, quote, giving rise to the Society of Theophilanthropes itself. Of greater significance for our overall investigation, though, is the fact that D'Aubemesnil's book was published at the printing presses of Nicolas de Bonneville, Cercle Social, in Paris. Mathiez describes that the Bonneville venture as publishing works which were fearless while at the same time eccentric and revolutionary. Definitely, and some of this peculiar material consisted of new crypto-revolutionary works by the high priest of mysticism from Lyon, Louis Claude de Saint-Martin. So this is the Martinism. Founded by Bonneville, 1768 through 1828, and Claude Fauchet in 1790. The Cercle Social was a propaganda machine during the French Revolution, and perhaps the most important vehicle for the dissemination of radical views. Prominent members included Camille Desmoulins, Marie-Jean Condorcet, Jacques-Pierre Brissot, and Jean-Baptiste Louvet. Okay, so that was the Brissot mentioned earlier. Jean-Baptiste Louvet. And then that's his life, 1760 through 1797. It was through Bonneville's circle that revolutionary journalism had first become viable. Billington wrote that what Bonneville had created within the safety and permissiveness of the Duc d'Orléans' Palais Royal was nothing less than the prototype of a modern revolutionary organization. Indeed, Karl Marx, 1818 through 83, and Friedrich Engels, 1820 through 1895, a half-century later, in their first joint work, The Holy Family, in 1844, were eagerly to concede their debt to Bonneville's enterprise. The revolutionary movement, which began in 1789 in the Cercle Social, which in the middle of its course had as its chief representative Leclerc and Roux, and which finally, with Babeuf's conspiracy, was temporarily defeated, gave rise to the communist idea, which Babeuf's friend Buonarroti reintroduced in France after the revolution in 1830. Buonarroti is a very important name when it comes to all conspiracy stuff. This idea consistently developed is the idea of the New World Order. Italics for New World Order is in the source. Bonneville was, of course, a good friend of both J.J.C. Bode and Thomas Paine, and with the Cercle Social's publication of d'Aubemesnil's Theophilanthropic doctrine and the Bode Illuminist influence in France comes full circle. The first church of Theophilanthropy, it turns out, was founded by Paine and 5 families in Paris in January 1797. Paine explained in a letter to Thomas Erskine that the word theophilanthropy was a compound of 3 Greek words signifying God, love, and man, and a proper description of his congregation, he had said, was lovers of God and man and adorers of God and friends of man. In Paine's inaugural address to the cult, it was explained that theophilanthropy was in its infancy but had lofty goals of integrating philosophy with theology and science. Throughout an eventful year, Paine's congregation of theophilanthropes would attend their new-founded church and sing theistic and humanitarian hymns and read odes. Ethical readings were introduced from the Bible and from Chinese, Hindu, and Greek authors. Conway calls it a foundation of the religion of humanity, in which the church of man was to be built, to bring into harmony the sages of all races. 4 sacred festivals were commemorated in honor of Washington, St. Vincent de Paul, Socrates, and Rousseau. At the beginning of its power, a total of 18 churches and chapels in Paris alone were equipped to conduct theophilanthropic ceremonies. The cult of theophilanthropy prospered in France from 1796 until 1801, when it was abolished by Napoleon in July following a concordat with the Vatican. d'Aubemesnil died in 1802, but the doctrine lived on in America. From Revolution and Reaction, Perfectibilists by Terry Mallinson, the 18th century Bavarian Order of the Illuminati. One of the finest books written on it so far, next to Joseph Vaga's and, I'm forgetting his first, Jeevananda Singh, I believe, translations of the entirety of the Bavarian Illuminati's works that they put together in the Secret School of Wisdom. I recommend the latter so that you could actually read what at the time would have been the kind of exciting writing of really one of the most mind-blowing of groups of thinkers. Their influence on the West is being seen right now. Their ideas of what the world of all normal patterns of life that had pre-existed, even within the living memory, just to have constant revolution. I mean, they never had a plan for how things would be managed, just constant revolution. But to have some kind of constant revolution where now, I mean, we're unwinding reason. What the concept that there is objective truth, no, that people don't even believe that anymore. And now you know where it came from. Most liberals in general credit their thinking to those thinkers, but most importantly are usurpers. People who use black propaganda, people who use misinformation, people who, if you want to know how to like really warp people's minds, that they have a perfect structure for how that's done. Knowing their history is very important to know how the human mind was reshaped from the top down, from the universities and the publishing houses to the common person. And that none of it it never comes from the ground up. No revolution ever comes from the ground up. Not even the peasants' revolt in Britain came from the ground up. Now we know that there's just some people who will organize things and make it happen. And they have to know how. They have to know how to get people dedicated to a cause. And it might take generations. What I just read to you, all those people were alive in the late 1700s. That the revolutionary period was a fascinating period of time. And I highly recommend more people get familiar with that period of time, the 1600s in Europe, just as the university system was coming to the height of its power, such that the Jesuits ended up getting kicked out of a lot of European countries. Basically the educational order of the Western world was suddenly kicked out of school, and the kids took over. What do you call them? GTFs. Imagine that everywhere. All the professors get kicked out, and GTFs take over, and their ideas become normal. That's what happened everywhere. And then the revolutions came. It did not come from the villages. It did not come from the streets. Normal people do not want to upset the apple cart. Women don't fight. Men like going to work and being paid money and having a simple life. Everybody wants to be fat and happy and not have to worry. The life think about Venezuela. That's a revolution. That's what you get.